2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. How does a man lose his heart and reclaim it again? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. Hey, Tyler, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Good. You get any citations up on your camping trip this year?
just got back yesterday from the annual trip up to our backpacking trip, and I'm happy to report that we didn't do anything illegal.
Oh, good. Wow.
Yeah, that's excellent. And even if we did, we didn't see a ranger. So we actually came home unscathed. It was like one of the best trips we've ever had up there. Actually, we had a phenomenal time up there. And,
can you have fires up there?
Yeah, you can have fires up there this year. Everything is totally wet still, beautiful. We ended up we camped next to a lake that was actually two lakes, and then right across the trail from us was another lake, and then a mile away we had three other lakes.
Oh, so that's great. Just
basically
full of trout.
5 lakes, tons of different species of trout. We saw lots of sign of animals, elk, deer, bear.
Nice.
But never actually saw a whole lot of the actual wildlife. I think I saw a couple of deer. But man, it was phenomenal. And it's actually part of the reason why I think I wanted to do this topic today. There's a couple of reasons why, and I'll explain it a little bit later, but it's kind of been sitting on my heart a little bit as a result of a couple of things that I thought about and that happened while we were on the trip. So it was a phenomenal trip. We came home safe, and thanks for asking, man.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Should we get into this?
Yeah, let's get into it. By the time this comes out, we're probably just
weeks away,
maybe
a month. Sun.
Yeah, maybe a month or a few weeks away from the Rising Sun retreat. And I don't know if we'll have any passes left or not, but if anyone is interested, you go to risingsun.org. And again, that's risingsunson.org, and you can look and see what we're all about. And we'll talk a little bit about that and how that fits into this topic today a little bit. But yeah, let's jump into it today a little bit.
So Tyler, what we see a lot of is men who don't know who they are. And some of the signs of this are they show up really weak in their relationships. They're not confident they stay at real dead end jobs, just get by in life. They're depressed,
sell themselves short.
They're addicted. They're looking for ways to just numb out life, and they can't have boundaries, healthy boundaries in their relationships, and they just don't know who they are. They lack confidence, and in that not knowing who they are, it leads to all kinds of and creates all kinds of other problems in their life. So I think what we want to really discuss is this whole progression of losing a sense of self as a man, and then what happens, and then how to actually reclaim your heart, understand who you are, and step back into your masculinity, right?
Yeah.
So
I'd like to maybe just share a contrast here to what you're saying here. So Brannon, you and I, we in our offices and in our work and in our day-to-day lives, and I think if everybody who's listening were to just look around at the world that they're living in, they would see evidence of the same things, where so many men today have gotten so out of touch with who they are that they end up in these lives that are sort of cubicalized. They go through the motions. At best, they go to their day job, they do their duty, they come home and they fulfill what they're supposed to do as a man at home. Maybe not, but then they struggle on the side with side addictions or numbness, or they feel empty inside. They lost touch with who they are. They don't have a lot of like vibrance or savor for life, and so then they look for ways to fill that void by chasing the next shiny thing, or getting stuck in pornography, or trying to find a different world.
porn Mountain Dew and video games.
Yeah, the same one that we've talked about in the past. Porn, video games, and Mountain Dew. They're trying to scratch.
Hey, I love a good cold dew. I gotta say. But anyways,
don't we
sorry.
all? Yeah. There's a reason why all of those things are so appealing, especially to men, because as we've talked about it in that long episode a long time ago about why do men love porn, video games, and Mountain Dew, each one of those things sort of scratches an itch that is actually built into them, we believe, by God, but it does it in a kind of a counterfeited way that still keeps them trapped and stuck. And then you get men who then can't manage their emotions, and they're angry, or they're disconnected, or they don't show up in strength in their relationships with their wives and their children. And Brannon, we work with men in that position all the time.
Yeah.
Like we see that. That's the world. In a lot of ways, that's the world that we're kind of living in, is that men have had their souls kind of ripped out of them. Contrast that with what I experienced in the mountains this last week with a nephew of mine. I have an 11-year-old, almost 12-year-old nephew who we invited to go with us. He's never been backpacking before. This is his first trip backpacking. And I think the hike up almost killed him. but once he got there, we're fortunate enough, we go back there with horses and things. We take paddle boards and fishing rods and games and all sorts of things that we can do while we're up there. And on the third night, I went down to the lake and to get to refill on the water. And as I got down to the water, it was almost dark. The sun's setting on the lake. And I look out on the water, and this 11-year-old nephew of mine is paddling a paddleboard with his shirt off out to the island with a fishing rod in the lake. And I could just see it in him. He was like Huck Finn again. Like he was just like unleashing his own like adventure of, he was this guy that was paddling out to go catch his own fish. It was funny to watch too, because he got out to the island, he'd forgotten the bug spray. So instead of fishing, he just stood there for like 30 minutes, like swatting bugs off his body with no shirt on, but it was phenomenal. I just sat there and just watching my nephew, something inside of me unlocked and was like, oh, I remember being that boy. I remember like going into the backwoods of the Uintas with Dad when we were young boys for the first time, and going from one lake to the next and thinking I was just on this adventure, that nobody else had ever traveled these trails before, and that I was seeing new things, and I was catching these fish, and I was doing this amazing stuff. And the world was so big, and venture was right at your fingertips all the time. And And I'm sitting here watching this unfold in front of me with an 11-year-old boy. And then I'm thinking about certain clients of mine, one in particular right now, whose soul almost feels dead to me, and going, how did it happen that this grown man at one point was just like this 11-year-old nephew of mine? What is it that causes a man to lose touch with those parts of himself that actually keep him alive and add vibrance and color to life? And so maybe today we talk about the process of losing heart, and then also the process of maybe how to reclaim it.
Yep. You talk a lot, Tyler, about going to the mountains and you know what, to find your heart, you don't have to end up with your shirt off in the mountains. Like,
yeah. And if you do, take some bug spray.
Yeah. But let's back up a little bit to like, how do you lose your heart? That even that 11-year-old boy, I would guess to some degree, the process of the wounding has started for him, because it happens to every man. Sometimes the wounding is more vicious and deeper, ferocious, whatever word we want to use, than others, and sometimes it's more subtle and covert and confusing. So, when my sons were born, and right when they were born, I looked them in the eye and they were pure as can be. They were nothing but just pureness, right? Just them. That they're just talk about. There's nothing more authentic than a brand new born baby, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But quickly, they started to get socialized. They started to take on agreements. They started to believe certain things, and they also started to have some trauma as a result of the way that I parent them. I try hard not to traumatize my boys, but I know that I am to some degree. Now, you take someone else, whose mom and dad are, let's say, they're alcoholics, or you take a young boy who has a cousin who's a perpetrator, or a neighbor who's a perpetrator, and quickly a sense of self starts to shift and starts to change. You take a child with a parent who is just a little bit emotionally shut down and can't connect to their heart, can't validate them, can't empathize, and can't see them. What does that child start to think about them and who they are, right? So I'm trying to give a bunch of different examples of the wounds that come
you could add to
into our
that,
lives.
Brannon, that even the system itself that we live in doesn't really like lend itself well to some of the elements that we find in the masculine heart. If we look at Eldridge's stuff, that a boy, the masculine heart consists of adventure, battle, and the pursuit of beauty. Like, you take a young boy and put him in our normal, any public school anywhere, and the minute he's out at recess starting to build a fort with the playground equipment, what happens? He gets in trouble for being unsafe. The minute he's got a little bit of extra energy and he's kind of bouncing off the walls in the class, all of a sudden he's diagnosed with ADHD and he's considered a behavioral problem.
Then he goes inside and is taught that it's okay to have a sex change.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
There's the systems are very,
they don't lend themselves well to like the actual nurturing of those kind of core elements of what's already kind of built into them. And so you take a system like that, you take whatever happens just because we interact with human beings, people, leaders, parents, whatever, and pretty quickly you start to go, oh man, that wildness in me isn't actually like, all it does is cause problems.
Well, and another thing too, Tyler, is the counterfeits are introduced so young. Like, okay, I want to play in the playground, I want to build that fort, so but why don't I just grab my iPad and build a fort on Fortnite?
Yeah.
And that's much easier, and that's a bigger dopamine rush. And so I'll just do that over and over and over again. And so, I mean, how young do you see kids
And
just
it doesn't cause any problems because now my parents think I'm being babysat and I'm not getting into any
yeah,
more
I'm quiet. I'm
issues.
not causing problems because I'm not out
Yeah.
having an adventure. I'm having this fake adventure, but it keeps me quiet.
Yeah.
Right there's a wound, right? And right there is this, and not to say video games are bad, but the point is what you're being taught early on is shut up, be quiet, and let's numb you out. And so then as an adult, here I am. Well, I'll just be quiet, I'll hide things, and I'll numb out.
Now I'm playing with bigger stakes because I have a wife and I have a family and I have children, and I never actually learned how to grow into my own masculinity, so I can't bestow it on my own children, but I feel the pressure to do so. So now I have to perform. And that's where you see the things like toxic masculinity, or you see this, men, the only place where they sometimes feel okay to show their feelings is through anger and rage. And then of course that causes damage in their whole world with them, and then they end up numbing out, or they end up disappearing, or they end up with some type of other addiction. And now it's got a ripple effect into the lives of everybody else around them. And they're actually causing the same kinds of damage.
Generational trauma starts to happen
that they had incurred as a young boy themselves.
But Tyler, here's the thing. So like you think about that. Their father wounded them, so now they're wounding their sons. And so how do you change the pattern? How do you reclaim your heart actually, because I would guess that their father's father wounded them, right? And so like how do you be the one, the change agent, to say, I'm not passing this on anymore? And I believe that there's something more to life than just surviving because I have these wounds and just trying to get through life.
Yeah, I got a couple of thoughts on that principally, but I want to tell a story to go along with it since you asked the question. This just happened this weekend and it was pretty profound for me. In the last few weeks, I've had kind of an interesting thing go on where in my own therapy, I pushed on some things with a particular client that led to kind of a blow up that then has led to having somebody, one of my clients, one of the people that I really love, actually not very happy with me, to the point that I've had my life threatened. And I sit and I think about what I've done and how I've done certain things. And I recap if I would change what I've done, and I don't think I would. And, but so I have this client in my mind that's been weighing heavy on me. Like, how would I best serve them? How would I help them? And this client is someone who fits the bill of like, it's a wounded boy inside of a grown man's body. And that wounded boy in a grown man's body is causing all sorts of havoc in the lives of everyone around them. And my wife, we did this little devotional one night. We do a devotional every night around the campfire with our family. And my wife did a devotional one night about, the topic was on forgiveness, but then she did an exercise, and the exercise was a loving kindness meditation. And we were supposed to basically just start by breathing deeply. And then as we breathe in all of the oxygen of the mountains. And then we feel this is kind of a mindfulness thing. You feel the energy coming from the earth of love, and the universe pushing love into you, and the sky pushing love into you, and the trees and everything pushing love into you, so that you've become fully consumed with love, that there's nothing inside of you but love. And then as you're full of that love, you picture somebody in your life who you maybe have some problems with, and you bring their face up and you notice them, and then you have them smile at you, and then you push all of that love into them. You empty your whole soul into them of just love. And so this client came to mind for me while I was doing this exercise. Sorry, I'm going to get emotional with it. And here I am up in the mountains, pushing every last ounce of love that I can into this client, like in my own mind, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then I imagined that love turned into light, and the light started to just beam from every part of that client. And he almost became like a star, just like this shining star, beautiful, like vibrant, shining star. Um, it occurred to me that the biggest source of what's going to actually change the heart of that wounded man, the little boy inside of a man's body, is to have an experience, not just the thought, but to have an experience of God's love for him. Now, the challenge to that is that it's hard to stay in a place of loving him while he's also doing all these behaviors that are so destructive. And so there's this balancing act of, principally, he needs to be humble enough to realize that he needs help. He needs to be accountable enough to actually seek out the places where he can go and get his masculinity bestowed upon him again, where he can actually take accountability for the things that he's doing and start changing those behaviors. He needs to be able to take action and effort towards a new life, towards re-engaging with those parts of himself that are wounded and lost. But at the very bottom of all of that, there needs to be love. So I don't know how you can bring everything I just said together, Brannon. I hope that makes sense.
Totally. I love that story. But so here's the thing. We get caught up in an unconscious web, where, when I say the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek, the suffering that a man is having in his life and not really knowing himself has everything to do with the armor that he suits up in and day out. And the armor it can look anywhere from being cold and shut off to being way too inviting and not having any boundaries. So you can go every direction with this armor. And when you armor up, you think that armor is helping you survive. So if I'm a little kid and let's say dad abandons me, and let's say he gets sent off to jail or something, and so I armor up and I act like I'm tough and I don't need connection from other men, and I spend my life doing that, and I don't have any friends and I don't have any connection. What do I need most?
You need to lay down the armor and allow men to love you.
Yeah, in a really tender, beautiful way.
Yeah. And vice versa, as if my armor is I overperform and I always say yes to everybody.
And you say no.
I need to actually learn how to actually have my own backbone and start to say no.
Here's one with you, Tyler, in your story that you just told. I know that at your heart level, like something that is so vulnerable is you don't want to let people down.
I hate letting people down.
And so here you are, this guy hates you for the therapy that you gave. And I know it probably just torments your heart
I didn't sleep for 3 days.
Right. But the cave you fear to enter is probably not doing much about it, knowing you did the right thing and surrendering it over and just sending him love rather than trying to fix it and trying to do this and trying to do that, realizing that I'm okay unto myself as a man and I don't need to have him like me. He doesn't need to approve of me. I can sit in this. It's okay. That's opposite action to the trauma and the wounds and all of that stuff. And that's what heals you, Tyler, is sitting in that courage and that surrender to be able to not have to fix it with him. Right.
Right. Yeah.
That's just an example.
And with that example, Brannon, what's actually brought me the most peace is that I've wrestled with this, and you're exactly right. It hit that nerve in me that I hate disappointing people. That goes right down to my core beliefs of my shame and everything else.
Right, your wounds.
And I sit here and I wrestle with it. And that's why I wrestle with it and wrestle. I'm like, would I do it differently? And my answer is, I don't think I would do it differently. So what I'm left with is having to surrender it. And now I work myself to a place, thanks to this exercise, where I feel so much. I mean, I'm getting emotional thinking about it again. I feel so much love for this man. That if I were to see him on the street, I would probably go up to him and want to give him a hug, and he'd punch me in the face. And and that would be okay. Like, because
I'll be there. I'll be there to punch him back. You can keep trying to hug him.
because I'm not going to go back on the things that I mean, the principles that I was teaching and that I believe in so strongly. I believe in those things, and I can't go back on them for the sake of keeping the peace.
But Tyler, what I want the audience to understand and see is there's something bigger happening here. Okay, it's yes, you have love for him. That's great, right? But there's something bigger happening inside of you, where you take your wounds as I need to please people and I need people to like me. And you go through this process and you act opposite and have an experience where you can realize that he might not like you and you're okay.
Yeah.
That's therapeutic. That's reclaiming your heart. That's understanding that your worth doesn't come from everybody liking you. Your value doesn't come from not letting people down, right? And so that's specific to your wound. And so for a man to reclaim his heart, you have to really get to know your shadow, we call it.
You have to come to know your wounds.
Yeah, your wounds and your protective parts, and in the ways that you do protect, because right there is the opportunity for reclamation of heart is, oh, that's how I'm protecting and that's what I do. How can I, like, what do I need to look at here? And how can I act opposite to this in order to heal these wounds?
And I think, Brannon, in understanding the wounds, you don't understand just how you were wounded. You understand what those wounds produced, which is the belief systems about your life, your relationships, whatever. When you recognize those no longer serve you and you act opposite to those, there's something that's extremely important about that acting opposite, and it's that it provides opportunity for an emotionally corrective experience.
Right.
Where, if we're using my example right now, as excruciating as it is, what it's forced me to do is turn myself back to God over and over again. And over again, I have ended up feeling God's love for me and the truth of the things that I'm trying to live as a result of knowing who I am in God's eyes. And so that emotional shift happens in the midst of the acting opposite to those false things, to those things that no longer serve me, to understanding the wound, understanding the beliefs, acting opposite to them, produces an emotionally corrective experience that says, yeah, Tyler, like, this world isn't about having everybody be happy with you all the time. This world is about living in accordance with who God says you are.
But to have that experience, Tyler, you have to surrender and step over a threshold. So, like,
courage.
Yeah, like there's a moment where it's like, okay, like, I can do what I've always done. I can create what I've always created. Or I can face the beast. I can look at the fear, the discomfort, this like overwhelming discomfort, and I can let go, and I can turn this over to God, and I can step in a different direction. And that's what everybody is tasked with, to reclaim your heart. I remember, Tyler, when I first started doing therapy, it was like I started doing therapy and my caseload wasn't filling up, and I sucked at it. And I took a look at it and I realized I'm trying hard to get my clients to like me.
Yeah.
And so you think about it, like a client coming in for therapy and the therapist is like, yeah, just like me. Like, yeah, they didn't want to pay for that.
No, shocker.
Yeah. But I had to look really deep. Like, what are some of my wounds? I want to be significant. I want to be seen. I want to be liked. I want to be respected. And yikes, like, how am I going to just be honest and blunt and like push my clients if I'm so worried about all those things for myself? And I had a great opportunity to let go of that need to be liked and step into some things. And as a result, I experienced some healing on a deeper level of, I can speak up, I can be respected, all those things can happen, but I don't need it for my worth. I don't need it for my value, right? And same thing, it goes back to my wounds. But once I dealt with those wounds, then the real me was able to start to come up and come out.
Yes.
Right.
And then that's really where the gift of your life into the life of everybody else happens anyway, is when your self becomes more authentic and more congruent with the life that you live. That's where you have the most impact on your life and on the people around you too.
Yep.
And in doing so, you give everyone else permission around you to start to live in the same kinds of ways.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Tyler, I want to just speak to some things that I think can help reclaim a heart.
Yeah.
And sometimes the simplest things will do it. Like just remove the noise and embrace some silence. And just listen. And when I say listen, I don't mean with your ears, I mean with your heart. Listen.
Most people have a hard time with that, Brannon, because they're not comfortable with the silence in their own head.
Right. All the protective parts come up, and then notice that, like, look how hard this is for me because I just can't, go sit for 20 minutes in silence and just listen, and see what you feel, see what things come up for you. What does your intuition say? And see if your ego's fighting it and your protective parts are there. The other thing is, and you brought this up, and you always bring this up, but is nature. I believe we are all connected, and we're connected to this earth. And if you want to reclaim your heart, you have to reconnect to the earth. And Tyler, I know you're a big proponent of that too.
Yeah. I'm just this last trip, I took 5 battery packs with me so I could film some videos and keep track of the maps. And then I forgot the cord. So I had power that could not be used. So I was left with nothing, but I didn't touch my phone for 4 days. I didn't even have to look at it for 4 days. And I can tell you that it was the best thing that happened for the whole trip.
Yeah.
Because nature, because God was able to just be God without any distractions. And there's true power in that.
Yep. And so you mix nature with mindfulness and presence. A lot of the healing, a lot of the things we do at Rising Sun is just trying to get the guys to be in the here and now.
Yeah, we basically ask them to shut their phones off and come spend time in the mountains with us.
Yeah, be in the nature, in the here and now, and allow space and opportunity for surrender and whatever God needs to speak to their heart beyond all of their wounds and their trauma and all of those things.
Yep.
Also things like music can bring out, it can move energy and help you feel who you are. The right types of music can. And then I would say the most important is connection to other men. You want to know who you are as a man? Allow yourself to be vulnerable with other men. Masculinity bestows masculinity. And when you've had broken masculinity not bestow that upon you, and you're just wounded by that, you don't know who you are as a man. But when you have healthy masculinity around you, you feel it, you know it, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And it means so much, and I think, it's easy to do that knowing what we know. When my nephew comes back from the island with mosquito bites all over his body, a fishing rod and a smile that's from ear to ear because he just had the biggest adventure in the world. And I go, holy cow, man. That's amazing. You went out there in the dark trying to catch a fish by yourself. That's freaking awesome, dude. You became a man today.
And he's like, man, Uncle Tyler is just
I was like, dude, you became a man today. You still took a step into manhood today. I'm looking for that opportunity with that nephew, but we don't get that as grown men very often because we're so closed off. And when we receive it, now this is what's interesting, is that we can't get our value from another man. We only get that in our wrestle with God, but other men so often are the fingertips and the hands of God to speak those messages to us. And when we receive that, and we receive it from God through another man, there is something about that for us as men that we crave and we ache for. It's built into us. And when we get that kind of nurturing, it does something to shift our way of being in this world and the way that we see ourselves. So
I
you're spot on.
I got to tell you a story. So I went fishing with my kids and my oldest son. Like, you know how it is fishing as a dad. Like, it's not, you're just tying a lot of knots, and getting a lot of tangles.
Yeah.
And so I set up the poles, and my youngest son just loves fishing. Like, and we start reeling him in. We start catching bass and catfish and stuff. And my oldest son runs off and starts playing on a playground. And part of me as a shitty dad, is like, what's wrong with my freaking son? Like, he's off playing on a playground while we're fishing. Like, what? Give me a break. Yeah. And so he's gone for like a couple hours. And in the meantime, me and my youngest son, we caught like 6 or 7 fish. Like, we were having a good time, My other son comes back, and I'm trying hard not to like be like, dude, like, why don't you,
where'd you go? Yeah.
And he's like, hey, and I'm like, hey, well, it's about time to go. He's like, well, let me catch a fish. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so he grabs a pole, he rigs it up himself. He does this horrible cast, like 5 feet out in the lake, and reels in a fish.
That's awesome.
And he's holding it up, and he's looking at me like, see, Dad?
Like, it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, see? Like, he totally slapped me. Like, look, like, I can go do what I want, and I can come catch your fish.
He's like, I can do it all, man. I can play on the playground. Yeah. I can come keep you happy, Dad. All right.
And I'm going to go catch a fish.
All right. Yeah. Can I go back to the playground now?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Like, and I was like, dude, I can't believe you just pulled that off. That was freaking amazing. Yeah. You just came over, like, you just came over, you looked me in the eyes like, I'm catching a fish, and you did it.
You did it, man.
You did it. And he was looking at me like, just so proud.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's so funny. Yeah. And again, it's not that like catching the fish is the thing, but like,
no,
but to have that where you caught yourself in that moment, like, yeah, I'm gonna figure out a way to help bestow that masculinity in him, or whatever it is. It's like, that's what mattered. Even if he didn't even catch a fish, you would have found a different way of saying,
hopefully,
hey, man,
yes,
like, yeah, I'm glad you make your own choices, bud.
You're the man. Here's the thing. It's an interesting thing because it's really helpful to get that from your father. Let me give you your masculinity and tell you like who you actually are. And it's also really important for every man to not need to get that from your father, and to learn how to get it from God.
Yeah. That's
get it beyond your father, because your father's imperfect, and he will wound you as much as he will validate you. But God is perfect and will love you and validate you perfectly.
No matter what. And that's the hard part is that we have that ache inside for it. Sometimes God works through other men, including our fathers, and at the end of the day, the wrestle is between us and God.
Yep. And Rising Sun is, we can't tell you the whole process of it and what it is and how it works, but it's just that. It's all these things that we've talked about kind of put together in a process. And the men who come hopefully are willing to surrender to it, to let go, and to go all in.
The beautiful thing about this event, Brannon, is that it takes such a commitment to come between your energy, between your time and your resources and money. Only the people who really are ready for it are the ones that show up.
It weeds them out, and then together they create something.
An amazing collective energy because of that. Yeah.
Well, Tyler, fun discussion. I like talking about this stuff with you.
It's one of our favorite passions, man.
If you need me to come bodyguard for you, though, I'm happy to come on.
No need for bodyguarding. That wasn't the point of the story. The point of the story is that even the most wounded person, they need all of those things. They need to act opposite. They need accountability. They need humility. They need an emotional experience. They need to wrestle with God. But at the end of the day, at the very bottom, love is the answer. And love, especially as it comes through God, is the most powerful change agent in the world. So
absolutely. Yep.
Anyway, thanks, Brannon. And I know I mentioned it in our last episode because we do 2 a day, but happy birthday to you.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it, bro. Okay, we'll see you.
Thanks, guys.